getting on? Hello, everyone. Hold on 1 second. We've got more people coming. Okay, I don't know what's wrong with the system. It's taking a minute for people to join. Okay. Hi, everyone. It's lovely to have you here today. I can't tell you how much I'm looking forward to this talk. And I really, really feel from all of our Thursday calls, some of the same subjects come up over and over again. And this call is going to help you with those concerns and worries when we spend too much time in our head and with ourselves. We are recording the call. We're not sure whether it's going to go up on the playlist, but I'll let you guys know. Normally I have you type in the chat. I think this is the kind of call that it's going to be hitting on things that are, what you feel and how it feels to go through the process. So I think rather than me paying attention to the questions and asking Anna, what we're going to do is Anna's going to talk. And then in the end, we're going to open it up for a few minutes for some questions. Probably we'll have about time for 3 people. And then if there are extra questions after the end, you guys can post it on my closing comment on the group, and Anna will get back to you from there. But saying that, I'd like to introduce Anna. I have the reason I'm so excited about this talk, and I'm going to do the view a little bit more so I'm looking directly at it. One of the reasons I'm so excited about this talk is every Thursday I go on the calls, and every Thursday one person is floundering in dry spell land. And every single one of us has said and knows that they're going to come to the other side of it. But when you're in it, it doesn't feel like that. And it's part of the job, and nobody warns you about that part of the job when you get the gig. And when a long time ago, when I was in another one of those endless times where I thought nothing was ever going to happen again, I had worked corporate jobs, and I used to get part-time jobs thinking you had to make a living. And how the hell was I going to make a living making no money? Because I'm sorry, it's not true that every narrator just starts and gets £250 per finished hour. And I thought, I've got to quit, because I would get these weird part-time jobs and then I couldn't do the books. And Anna said the magic words that completely turned it around for me, and is basically the reason I'm not working at a local grocery store as a teller making below minimum wage right now. And I was burnt out from my corporate career, and that was all I could see. And I think we all have that wisdom within ourselves, and Anna is going to teach us how to tap into it. So over to you, Anna.
Hi. I've spent a lot of time laughing about this call because I was going to open with an apology and a disclaimer, because the video that Cup of Joe put up said, come along and all your problems will be answered. We have the answers if you have the questions. And it's a great video, but I wanted to attend the talk. And then I realized that I was giving it. So I've also been laughing even more because this is exactly what my talk is about. So I have been a narrator for about 5 years, and I'm going to give you a synopsis of my background just to use myself as an example as I go through this story. But I am fascinated by the fact that we are all underwhelmed by our own abilities. So I'm going to say that again because it's my favorite phrase. We are all underwhelmed by our own abilities. Let me introduce myself. So I am the youngest of 4 children. I'm born into a Spanish family. My mother was pregnant with me when the family moved from Spain to England. So I was born into a Spanish-speaking world and educated in London. My paternal grandfather was a film producer. My great-grandfather was a composer. And at the age of 19, I decided what I wanted to be. And so I told my parents that I wanted to be a professional singer, not because I wanted to be rich or famous, but I wanted to use my voice to make a living. And they said, "Oh, you have to be really good to do that." So I went to university and studied economics. I worked at the Spanish Embassy for several years. I basically went into financial administration, moved out of London, got married, had 2 daughters, spent 20 years office jobs at a desk, realized that life is really short and that we really need to chase our dreams. So I bought a microphone and I started messing around at home, and I started taking classical singing. I trained classically, thinking that certificates would empower me. You know, I would feel that if I had qualifications, it would get me somewhere. I started doing acting classes, got into musical theatre, took several leads in local shows, got a lead in a professional show at a provincial theatre, and went, this is what I want to do. This is me. But by now I lived in North Devon, which for those who don't know is in the West Country of England, and it's the countryside, and there's not much scope for the big time. So to say the least. Again, I went back to qualifications and I started studying online, and I went to Berkeley University of Music, and I did voice production, critical listening, sound engineering, and I got into VO. And I did corporate voiceover, e-learning, and I started doing all the coaching and all the training and all the stuff that everybody does. And I discovered ACX and audiobooks, and I was home. I'm assuming we're all narrators here, and there's something about being an audiobook narrator that is, I think, a personality type. I think long form narration requires a certain amount of a certain type of person to love it. And I finally felt like I'd found somewhere that I belonged. And that's what my talk is about. But before I get to the exciting bit, I was born into a family with a heritage that didn't quite fit the space I was occupying. So my parents were religious. I went to a convent school in England, but I'm dark-haired and dark-eyed, and I'm in a blonde, blue-eyed world. I didn't fit in. I learned to adapt. I shifted my behavior according to my situations. De vez en cuando estaba en reuniones donde siempre hablaba todo el mundo con las manos, todo el mundo riéndose, un montón de gente, todos hablando encima uno del otro. And then also in a world where children just sat still and only spoke when they were spoken to. And so I had this dual world that actually became a world of lots of different things. I became very people aware. I was a people watcher, as many of us are, because that's why we enjoy creating all these characters and all these voices that we have for audiobook. I think it primed me, that sense of being adaptable and being aware of the space you're in is what makes us all great narrators. So I've always been interested in people, in self-development. Back in the 90s, it was Norman Vincent Peale and You Can If You Think You Can. Nowadays, I'm really big into Mel Robbins, whom I adore, Esther Perel, Brene Brown, need I say more? You know, she's so huge into vulnerability and authenticity, which again, as an audiobook narrator, is huge. You know, we are all looking for that voice, that sound that is the author's truth, as they say. We're all looking to be our authentic selves, and I believe that we bring all of our experiences to acting, to audiobook narration. And so everything we've experienced, everything we've been through makes us who we are and makes our voices the way they are, and therefore colors the characters we choose and the way we choose to interpret different books. It's all connected. But my latest kick is a gentleman called Gabor Mate. He is a Hungarian-Canadian physician who I discovered because I was looking for a Canadian accent, a Hungarian accent for a book. And I'm terrible at going onto YouTube and then finding my way down some wormhole of stuff where suddenly, yes, he's got a fantastic voice, but look at what he's saying. And actually, today is about paraphrasing that talk. So he basically solidified my thoughts that have been accumulating over the last, well, probably as long as I've been alive, to be honest, because it's not a conscious thing, is it, when we all start thinking about ourselves and life. I have suffered with mental ill health in my life and became aware of the physical results of emotional upset, the sickness that comes with anxiety, the tension that comes with nervousness, and the issues that come from the stuff we hold in our bodies that we don't use or shift. There's a great book actually called The Body Keeps the Score, which is all about the physical ailments produced by trauma that we've held on to. Anyway,
Is
I
that the
digress.
one Sean Pratt narrated?
It is, funnily enough,
Yep,
yes.
yep, I listened to it.
I was trying to remember who the author was actually, because I haven't listened to the book sadly, but I have read it. But it's a really good book. The Body Keeps the Score. Anyway, Gabor Mate speaks about the connection between stress and disease. Now, the part I've picked up on for today is that he says, as human beings, we exist with two requirements in life: attachment and authenticity. So looking at attachment, we're born into loving homes where our needs are met, our caregivers nurture us, clothe us, feed us, and for a very long time as humans, we are reliant on these people to give us care. They also educate us. They teach us when we can and can't throw food, when we can and can't throw a tantrum, when we can and can't sleep, when we can and can't eat. And we're told externally by our parents, by teachers, by our peers as teenagers, become really important in how we organize our thoughts and the things we decide to do with our lives. Our co-workers, our bosses, our spouses, and then our children and our friends and the people we hang with. It's the attachment we have, that sense, that need of belonging, is a major crux in our lives. And at any time that we break the mold or we don't fulfill the requirement of the people we're hanging with, we either have to step away from that group or adjust our behavior. The point being that our need for attachment is actually in conflict with our need for authenticity. So if belonging to a particular group makes you behave in a particular way that is outside of who you actually are, suddenly you're building this alter ego, for want of a better word. And your choice is either to detach yourself from that group, to be your authentic self, or not. And the talk he does actually talks about the reason that so many people are afraid of public speaking, because ultimately we, having spent all our lives learning from these external sources, the two requirements we had are attachment and authenticity. We ultimately need to feel that sense of belonging. So if we go to step out onto a stage and worry that we're going to make a big mess, people are going to pull away from us. They're going to not include us in their group. And ultimately, our brains from the Stone Age says that if we don't belong to the group, then we don't get fed and we don't get clothed and we can't be warm, and panic sets in. And so our bodies are reacting. There is another very good book called The Chimp Paradox that talks about this monkey brain that guides most of our choices, irrespective of what our actual lives require. And that's, again, a whole nother story. But I've always wondered why we have a tendency to see the negative, why we have this bias toward bad. Ultimately, it's to keep us safe and to save us from starvation. But nowadays, the idea of being put out into the cold and separated from the group, this innate instinct for survival that protects us from anything that might cause us upset, is what we strive for. And it's this balance permanently between this attachment and authenticity that's the issue. He says that when we suffer with a loss of attachment, we feel alienation from our tribe, our family, our group. And so we adjust our behavior. We attempt to fit in, but then we stray from our authenticity. He goes on to talk a lot about people straying from their authenticity makes them fall into addiction. So not just drugs and alcohol, but work, romantic liaisons, gambling, exercise, shopping, all the things that we do. The quote I enjoyed was, the degree of wanting is in direct proportion to the degree of emptiness, which blew my mind,
Was he
because
the guy that does addiction therapies? Is he the guy that specializes in addiction? I think he
probably,
is.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
I've heard of him. Go ahead, sorry.
No, 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 no. The other little nugget that I really enjoyed was he talks about habit energy. So in the world of mental health, they talk about synapses that fire together, wire together. Basically, we all live with routines and habits. The stuff we do over and over is the stuff that comes easiest to us, and our brains are always looking for paths of least resistance. So if it sees something it looks relatively familiar, it's going to go down that path. So which is why habits are so important. And he talks about habit energy. Um, the the brain is always looking to survive at all costs. And he talks about the things that we routinely do that move us through life. Our habit energy promotes lack to drive us forward, to keep us striving, to ensure our survival. So all these ideas we have as narrators, perhaps about, I'm getting carried away with myself now because that's coming next, but all of these things occur because this in feeling alienated, we stopped being authentic. So again, it's that balance between authenticity and attachment, being able to belong, but being able to belong as who you truly are, which is why I was so excited when I found audiobooks. The solution comes from not from external things, not from overthinking and over processing, but from reconnection to our true selves. So sorry, my brain is reminded of a story, which is probably totally irrelevant, but I'm going to tell it anyway, because I love it. I was in New Mexico a few years ago with a friend at a spa. There's a place called Ojo Caliente, where the water runs down from the mountains, and it's got that, one of the pools is full of I don't know, lots of very good minerals, and another pool full of lots of other good minerals. And I didn't care. I was having a lovely day, and we sat in the water and we absorbed things through our skin, and we had a wonder. It was beautifully sunny, and we decided to have a rest before we go for lunch. And there's swinging hammocks, around the grounds, and there's a hammock and then 3 sunbeds and then another hammock. And so I go in one hammock and my friend goes in the other, and we smile at each other, enjoying how wonderful our day is going. And lunchtime starts occurring. The place starts filling up. People start coming in. We're no longer there by ourselves. And this man and 2 women come and sit down on the 3 sunbeds between the 2 of us, and we're doing the raised eyebrows, because they're chatting really loudly about the day they've had and about work and about how things are going, and this conference they've been to. And they move through the woman's son who's just got married, and she's telling stories. And then the guy starts talking about GM crops and the importance of food. And the woman says, "Oh my God, yes, because I went to the store and I bought some genetically mortified tomatoes," at which point I start laughing, and we had to leave. But the point is that genetically modified tomatoes are made because we think the tomatoes we have aren't good enough. Either they don't last long enough and they don't get to the store quick enough, or they aren't red enough, or they're not sweet enough. And suddenly we're genetically modifying stuff to make it better. But actually, maybe the tomatoes are mortified, because that's what we're doing to ourselves all the time. We're shifting our behavior and fixing ourselves to fit in with other people. We're making ourselves better or bigger or louder or cleverer or less clever, or just so that the people around us won't feel bad, when actually authenticity has got to be key. It really is the thing that we all ought to be seeking. So all of these thoughts and feelings have ebbed and flowed throughout my life. I discovered self-help, and then I ignored it for a long time, and then I paid a bit more attention. And I think it's a really long process. I think it's a thing you can spend all of your time internalizing your thoughts, but ultimately we're social animals. We have needs. Our family have needs. They all need to be met. We've got to buy groceries. Everybody has to be fed. Ultimately, we need to deal with our emotions, and we need to find our people. And I feel like that sense of self-responsibility is something that each one of us can do. And it feels really timely, because right now in the world, as I'm sure you're all aware, this crazy virus that's unfolding, and I'm sure we all look to the government to find out what we're supposed to do. How do we deal with the crisis? Do we wear masks? Do we not wear masks? Should we go out? Should we stay in? Are we allowed to see our friends? Can we have pizza on a Tuesday? You know, suddenly you're looking to somebody else to make all these decisions for us when we're all actually perfectly capable of making our own decisions. I chose to wear a mask several days before I was told I had to. I told my children they couldn't come and see me on Mother's Day, despite the fact that I was desperate to see them. And so existing with our difficulties and our problems makes us human. But it seems also to kind of get in the way. And it makes everybody's life complicated when actually it shouldn't be. And I wish it wasn't, which is
And
why I'm here.
sorry, you just triggered something. Ironically, it makes us human, and the people that we love the most, the big stars, are the ones that show us they're authentic because they're so human, and we love them, faults and all. And we
You know,
spend all our
that
time
is
covering it.
a perfect segue to the next section, which is I wrote down some stuff about every so often people call me or they message me or I'm on a group call somewhere with other narrators and stuff. And like you said about the Thursday Cup of Joe calls, the messages are always the same. I hear people saying, oh my God, you know, this narrator is such a superstar. I'll never be that good.
Yeah.
And I remember there was a lady on a call who said that very thing. I'll never be Scott Brick. I'll never be Hilary Huber. And I said, actually, nobody's expecting you to be. I'll never be Scott Brick or Hilary Huber, and nor will any of us, because actually they are those people. I think it's really important to, there's, who's the guy? Bob Proctor, another self-help guru guy, says, don't be an extra in your own movie. We're all busy making other people star. It's really important to remember in a very esoteric way that we are each the center of our own universe. You know, I have teenage, they're not teenagers anymore, they're in their 20s now, but as teenagers, my daughters occupied my entire world. And I was this satellite bouncing around from person to person, asking if anybody had any requirements. Is there anything more I can do? If it was my mother, my sister, you know, and my job kind of took second place and my life took second place. And it was my own fault. I was doing it because I wanted to, but ultimately, I am the center of my own universe, and each of they are the center of their own universe. And we all have to do our very best to be our authentic selves, because that's the best way that we make the world a better place, you know, for want of a better
That's
word.
why they say that children don't owe their parents their life, because you
The
don't do
stuff
it.
we do for them, we do because we want to.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's totally voluntary.
Mm.
Another one I wrote down was, I was talking about accents. I got offered a book where they had basically read the back cover, and it said that the Portuguese detective who was born in Angola was about to unearth some major mystery, blah, blah. And they said, Portuguese, Angolan? And I went, sure, absolutely, as you do. So I hired a coach, and I studied Angolan and Portuguese, which I do Spanish, so it's not actually very similar at all, but you know, and received the book and start prepping. Turns out that the lady's Portuguese parents moved to London when she was born. She lived in England, and although her mother was from Angola, and it was mentioned in about chapter 17, the entire book took place in the north of England and Chechnya. So yeah, Russian accent, quick, or thereabouts. But it was a good book. But the point being, somebody said, I heard that book you did, and you do accents really well. I'll never be able to do all the accents. Well, nobody does all the accents. You sell what you do. That's our niche. Each of us has particular qualities, and it's actually about, we need to stop being underwhelmed by our own abilities. As I grew up, I thought everybody spoke 2 languages. It didn't occur to me that that was a thing, which I appreciate may sound bizarre to people who don't, but I know people who speak 3 and 4 languages. I can't. So suddenly it's you're always comparing yourself to other people, and actually what you bring to the table is just as important as what anybody else brings to the table. My other favorite is, oh yeah, I'm booked out until October, but then what? And it's again, this sense of scarcity, this idea that, and I always say, back in March, you weren't booked out till October. It's August. By October, you'll be booked out to January. We spend so much time worrying about the next job, or the job after the fourth one, or the first book, or whatever. But actually, it's about believing in ourselves and believing in abundance, believing in that. You only need to listen to one of Michelle Cobb's audiobook at the book fairs that she does the speeches, where she gives all the statistics and she tells you how many books have been made into audiobooks and how many haven't. There's lots of work out there. We just need to go get it. And we spend so much time being afraid that there isn't going to be another book, that we're not taking action. We're not moving ourselves forward. We're looking outside for answers when actually we already have all the answers.
And if we looked at ourselves, okay, I'm going to, not very much, just a tiny interruption. If we looked at ourselves the way you do when you meet a lover, like when you meet someone, you fall in love with them, you notice all these amazing traits. So if you meet a lover or a new audiobook narrator and you're like, wow, he's got 3 accents and this, you're not saying, oh, but he's not Scott Brick. You're saying, oh my God, he's got green hair and he's got 3 accents. So if we could just look at ourselves that way.
Absolutely.
I love
Absolutely.
that, the Scott Brick thing. I love that. Okay, so go ahead. Sorry, I swore
Poor
it was a
Scott.
short one.
If he only knew. So finally I've got some hopefully some helpful hints. I realized back when I was thinking about this, I was like, but I don't have any answers, and I don't have any answers. I disclaimer, I don't have any answers.
You do have the
I
answers though. Those are the but I think you do, and I think it's part of what you're saying is we all have we all kind of know the answers. You've got the answers.
We're already doing it, aren't we?
Yeah.
The fact that we're here and doing something we love.
Yeah.
Yeah, how lucky are we? Who knew that at the beginning of a pandemic that audiobook narration would be the business to be in? It's
Yeah,
like,
right.
that's crazy. As a freelancer, we did okay, didn't we?
8
Um,
million actors that are suddenly audiobook narrators. They knew. Okay,
but I
sorry.
have a short poem and
Yes.
some ideas. So the poem is it's called "The Guest House" by Rumi. This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they are a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them all in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. I like that poem because
That is gorgeous.
it says don't judge yourself. Ultimately, don't judge your feelings, don't judge your emotions. We all react and take in stuff depending on the different day, I can have somebody insult me one day and I'll cry, and I can have them insult me on another day and I'll go, I wonder what's wrong with him. And it makes no sense. There's no real rhyme or reason to it. I think we just need to be kinder to ourselves. So what can we do? I reckon you're already doing it. I'm actually preaching to the to the choir here. Information is power. Facebook groups. There's a lovely quote. I'm embarrassed to tell you for where it's from because it's from a Netflix show that I watch. But the quote is, "The people we choose is the closest we come to controlling our destiny." And I love that
Wow.
because it goes along with that whole, you are the sum of the 5 people you spend most time with. And it's just so true. And here we are at a cup of joe. Thank you, Daniela. Bringing like-minded, supportive people together to solve my mystery. Because I wanted to say all of this out loud in an attempt to help myself see what answers there were, and also in a minute find out if anybody else has any major thoughts. There's other Facebook groups like the narrators who need to move more, attempting to get us to make sure that we are all getting outside once a day and maybe standing up once in a while and raising our arms above our heads.
Yeah,
Always
I
an
haven't
idea.
checked that group out for like 4 months.
No, 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 actually, it hasn't been posted in for quite a while. I think we're all sitting far too still at the, exercising, eating right, acknowledging your stress in your life. We all know what we're supposed to be doing. We all know how to help ourselves. Accountability. Somebody said, I will quit on myself sooner than I'll quit on my friends. And I thought that's so true. It's the reason accountability works. You say stuff out loud, whether it's as a Facebook post, whether it's in your journal, whether it's to your mother-in-law so that she'll make sure to remind you the following weekend. Talking stuff through with other people, it keeps you on your journey. It keeps you true to yourself. And it reminds you of what you're doing. Saying out loud is really, really important. I do recommend journaling. I'm not great at finding friends to say stuff to, but 10 minutes every morning of writing something down has become a really nice routine that I have, whereby sometimes stuff repeats and I go, that thought keeps on coming up a lot, or I write things down and I didn't even know that's how I felt. And again, it's often just a brain dump. It stops you ruminating about things and allows you to get on with your day.
Did you do the
um,
artist's way? That's the artist's way, the biggest exercise, writer's
I
pages.
didn't actually. I've just bought that as an audiobook, so I need to listen to that apparently.
If you want to follow the program, I'll do it with you because I've never been able to make
Okay.
myself do it for years.
Okay. I'm not sure what I'm signing up for, but sure.
We should make ourselves accountable on Joe. We should have whoever wants to do the artist's way on Joe, and we
That's a
keep
good idea.
ourselves a separate. It's really hard and it sucks, and I hate going all the way through it. But the people that have gone through it swear it's life changing.
Okay.
So yeah, okay, sorry, I didn't mean to sign you up to
No,
something,
no,
but yep.
no. Yeah, I think that ultimately, whether we're, interacting with friends, family, colleagues, clients, producers, authors, it's all about connection. It's all about communication. It's all about relationships. It's all about attachment. And if we can join that with authenticity and offer up ourselves, our true selves, we're going to end up narrating the books that are perfect for us and that we are perfect for. Um, uh, I wrote down a really cool quote that I forget now, but it was something about keeping your eye on the prize. That when we're not after a Nobel Prize in narration, it's just about finishing a book and starting the next one. It's about getting that body of work behind you so that so that you can go out into the street and say, I narrate audiobooks for a living. How cool is that? How cool is it to get to say that? It still thrills me because you never know the kind of reaction you're going to get from people, but it is a wonderful, it's just a wonderful feeling. And I'm also aware that the books, every book I grow, every book teaches me, every book allows me to see something new that I didn't know about myself, whether it's my capacity to learn a different accent or my ability to finish a 400-page book, or to work with a producer that I'm having a bit of personality clashes with. Whatever it is, you learn something from every experience. And again, we bring all of our experiences to our job. So it's really important to embrace them and enjoy them. Awareness, self-compassion, action. Let's not be underwhelmed by our own abilities.
Love that. I do. I love that. And see, it's exactly what was promised in the introduction video. Do you guys not agree? That's brilliant. So for narrators, I think we keep coming back to the theme of finding our way to authenticity. Every single call has gone back to that theme. The voice calls, the relaxing calls, the meditation calls. You notice that it's all getting back to your authenticity, because how can we be other people if we're not ourselves? So you've given us ways in. What do you do about challenges when you're not feeling it to get back in touch with that? Like,
Amy Deutschler put up a thing on Facebook that said, I have a mammoth narration session today and I'm just not feeling it, but I'm going in anyway. And ultimately, action. We all need to get out of our own heads. Mostly our brains are full of, what are other people doing? What do other people need? What are other people thinking of us? And actually, action is the only way forward. I often
Yeah.
find that I don't want to go into the studio, and once I'm in, I'm loving it. You know, once I'm behind the mic, it's just me and the book, and it's just my favorite place. So why would I not want to? And yet I procrastinate big time. I do. I make sure the washing machine's finished. I make sure the dishwasher's emptied. I make sure, you know, it's like, really, really? And I have to have a stern talking to myself, because that's not where I want to be. I just don't want to have to think about that stuff. And I imagine that if I tick all those things off my list, then I'll be better off. But actually, I just want to be in the booth. And
Who
so I
knew
now do.
being narrators would have our houses be so clean? So, so action going into the booth, um, and you mentioned before self-care, which is where I fall down when you need it the most. Food, exercise, relaxation.
It's a whole body experience, isn't it? Narration. You know, I'm really aware that the days I'm tense, I'll go into the booth and listen to a previous chapter, and I'll try to start narrating, and my voice is at a higher pitch. It's slightly squeaky. There's a timbre to it that I didn't have before, and I have to listen to at least 2 minutes to be able to get myself back into the place I was in at 11 o'clock last night, which is a totally different place from 9 o'clock in the morning. You know, the life gets you, you know, and so we need to do whatever we can to. I think I came into narration with the T-shirt that says, "How hard can it be?" And I think if I had known, I probably wouldn't have got into narration. But now I'm here. I'm thrilled, because it is, the whole thing's a process. You learn a little bit every day, and it's not until you look back and you go, "This time last year, what was I doing?" And it's like, "Oh my God, yeah, I remember now." You know, there's that sense of you grow by mistake. You grow without realizing. And we don't acknowledge it. We don't take time to say, "Hey, well done me."
So
And I
when
think
you
that's really important.
so when you're negotiating for money, for instance,
Nice segue.
well, no, but it all comes back to that. You have to hold on to that. Do they know who I am kind of feeling? I'm amazing. How do you remind yourself of that when you're
So yeah,
standing in the spotlight of rejection?
I personally had to reverse engineer that. So I had to, when I first started rates, as I said, I started in VO and I didn't understand rates. Firstly, I went, "Oh, you're going to pay me for speaking?" But I do that all day, all the time. I do it anyway, you know. And then I realized that obviously, you know, Jeffrey Kafer had words, and that's not allowed. You're not allowed to do it for free because it makes everybody else look bad. So he didn't actually have words. I just mean, you know, I
Yeah.
followed all the stuff online. um, and it's mathematics, isn't it? You know, ultimately, you need to work out uh, how much you'd like to earn in a year, what your overheads are, how much of what you earn is actually wages, and how much of it is expenses, you know, paying your proofers, your engineers, your all your studio equipment, anything new you buy that year. And suddenly you're just dividing stuff down. So I work 9 to 12 and 2 to 5, which actually took me a really long time to work out, because as a freelancer I was working whenever, anytime, sometime. You know, if at 10 o'clock at night I could go to bed, or I could do that last chapter, you know, I'd do that. And it was like there was no semblance of order to my life. But I was a freelancer, and suddenly my job was 24/7. It nearly drove me insane. And what I realized is that I had to make it a business. I had to, if I wanted other people to take me seriously, I had to take myself seriously. And so suddenly 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, which doesn't work for everyone. People have, you know, other stuff going on. They have full-time jobs, which I bow down to those people, because that's my other issue is you sometimes think that, for example, having a part-time job, which maybe brings in $300 a month, and you know that your gas bill's guaranteed, and then you don't have to worry. But what you're not taking into account is that 8 hours on your feet at reception doesn't allow for you then to come home, feed your family, and then sit in the booth 3 hours.
And that's the
You know,
talk you gave me. And you had me sit down and figure out the budget. And I was shocked because I thought I knew everything. I
well,
thought I was working extra hard and I'm doing the books. But I kept missing like long weeks. It was taking me like 4 weeks to do one book because I'm like used to being a boss in a corporate job. I'm going to this like podunk little, like I had like 4 different minimum wage jobs, and I'm getting like told what to do for the first time in like 100 years, standing on my feet. Then I'm going home with all the angst. And I looked at the budget and I was paying myself like $52 an hour. And like you showed me the numbers that day, and it was like I could make 3 times that amount just on a crappy starter budget as a narrator.
But it's mostly because we're just not thinking about it. So you
Yeah.
spend, 20 hours on your feet. 20 hours is a terrible number, isn't it? Because that doesn't divide by 3 at all. So four mornings a week, 5 hours. You're working 9 till. Oh my God, my brain's empty now. 9 till 2, 4 mornings a week. It's 20 hours at $10 an hour, $200 a week. Okay, it's good money. You're paying bills. You're doing stuff. It's good. $200 a week is one finished hour of audio. Does it take you 20 hours to do one finished hour of audio? Well, luckily it doesn't me. I hope it doesn't.
And you're
If it
not,
takes
and
any
because
of
you're
you
at that
20 hours,
crappy
you
job,
shouldn't
you're
be at
not
this job.
doing, you're not
Yeah,
going to do the audio. I spent so much money on
and
just
that's the
junk
point.
food. You know, you're just sitting because you're not living
But
as who you want to
ultimately, it's
be.
because you don't believe in yourself.
Yeah,
Ultimately, the safety of having somebody else hand you money at the end of every week, and you actually have $200 in your hand, you say thank you very much, and it's somebody else's responsibility. Now, I'm not knocking part-time jobs. People need jobs and they need money in their hands,
yeah,
but I'm also aware that if you can take the leap, the money is there for the having. But you do need to believe in yourself. You have to move forward with your action plan, and you have to have the coaching and the training and the
yeah.
self-awareness to be able to say, if I'm only looking to make $200 a week and I have 20 hours to do it, there are other ways that I could do and have more fun doing it than standing on my feet for 5 hours, 4 days a week.
Yeah, and I do have to say, you guys, I'm not saying if you're just now starting narrating and you need like another job to pay the mortgage. My situation was different because I'd been living off redundancy for a year and a half and narrating full time. Suddenly I tried to move into, like, instead of backing myself as a narrator and getting more money and asking for more money, I suddenly thought it would be a good idea to just like go backwards and try to get someone to pay me again. So everyone's in different shoes. I would never
And
tell anyone
also
not to get a part-time job if they need that money.
it's also about the emotional wear and tear.
Yeah,
If it takes a lot of uh it took a lot of nervous energy in me to be a freelancer, to accept responsibility for having to go
yeah.
out and find work and do my own books and sort my life out. That in and of itself was really hard.
It's
And
scary being a freelancer because especially if you never grew up with anyone telling you, just don't have a boss. Do what you want to do for the rest of your life. You feel like you're going to get in trouble.
yeah, yeah.
Like someone's going to catch you and like report you and
which is
make you
which
go
is the whole
back.
imposter syndrome. It's that sensation that you're not supposed to be here and you are supposed to go to a different job and have somebody hand you money. So it's a mindset. It's a really different mindset, and there are practicalities. There are children to be looked after, and mums to sort out, and whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's a there are lots of things to be taken into account. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not suggesting for a moment, but it's that people shouldn't have part-time jobs. It's
Yeah,
just that
no.
what you do need to be aware of is the extra effort that requires, and therefore the expectation on your part that you're then going to do an 8-hour day and be a narrator as well. That's
There's
hard
a
work.
there's a moment when you I had a friend, she'll kill me if she sees this on YouTube, and I won't use names, that moved to America and she had savings of like 2,000 something pounds. And she moved to America and she was on hard times, broke for a while. We were all young. And I remember we were walking on the beach one day. She was like, it's so hard. I've got this chance to invest, but I don't have any money. And I'm like, but you have the 2,000 pounds. She's like, no, that's my, if I have to go back money. It was like, there comes a moment, and we all know when it is, where you have to ask yourself, do I want my foot here or here? Who am I? Am I a person that's going to just go back to part-time work, or am I? But that moment's maybe not the first week you start narrating. It's not easy to make money narrating, but you'll know. But
I
when that
had
moment
two
comes,
of those moments. One was my switch from Audacity to Studio One and Punch and Roll. I didn't do it for a year because I had finally got to a point where I thought I knew what I was doing. I was comfortable with my software. I'm going, I click. I'm really happy. I'm editing. I'm 6 to 1. I'm 6 hours in the booth, gives me 1 finished hour of audio. Why would I now spend any time learning a new piece of software and making myself feel like a beginner to move forward? I don't understand why I have to step back. I finally did. And I now produce 1 hour of audio in 3 hours. So I'm making twice as much.
you're a genius, though. Feel like a beginner. But that's what I did with the coaches a few months ago. And it's hard. It's
Yeah,
hard to
yeah,
make yourself feel like a beginner. But
yeah.
every time you do,
The,
and it's
the other
horrible, you
one,
hate everyone for like a
yeah, the
week.
other one is I'd spent so long studying sound engineering and mastering and learning about the different files and the stuff you should do. And so I did all my own work. I did all my own engineering. Well, then I was informed that if I handed it out to somebody else who charged less than I was earning as a narrator, I could spend that time narrating. Again, that took me a really long time to let that go. And it didn't make sense in my head. The maths was in front of me and I just couldn't. And it's fear. Ultimately, it's lack of self-belief. And I have no magic answers about how that happens. But ultimately, we all know whether we're pursuing the thing we love. And if we
Yeah.
are, then we need to be all in, and I'm not suggesting, financial hardship. I'm just saying we have to do everything in our power to get us where we want to go. And ultimately, being aware of who we are and what we have to offer and not being underwhelmed by our own abilities is one of the first steps, because acknowledging that I could organize my own finances, acknowledging that I could learn new software, despite the fact that it meant taking a pause for a second in something that I felt I'd moved so far forward in. Acknowledging that handing over my engineering to somebody else made so much more sense, despite the fact that I thought it felt like it was costing me money. And I didn't understand how that was a good investment in my time.
But you
And all of
took
this
the leap
takes,
and did the hard thing, not
yeah,
understanding it because you backed yourself.
yeah.
Because you have the inner core of backing yourself every step of the way,
And it
despite
comes
not
back.
wanting to.
Yeah, it goes back to that feeling at 19 when I felt I had no support and I felt there was nobody behind me. And so I didn't go down that route and I didn't become a singer. And I spent 25 years in finance going, what am I doing? And that's a long time. And I think we all need to be enjoying ourselves a little more. We need to be kinder to ourselves and to each other and be conscious of how fabulous we are.
And not just in the good times,
Yes.
which is the hard part.
Yes.
So, Anna, are you okay at this point to take a few questions or
Yeah, I'm
thoughts
happy
from the
to,
group?
or even if anybody wants to share some thoughts that they might have about anything I've
Pearls of
said, just to
wisdom.
share a story or yeah, very
How
happy.
about if anybody has any thoughts? I can't see everyone's screen. There are too many people. But if anybody has any thoughts, put something in the chat box and then I'll find you and we'll unmute you. I can't see the chat box now.
So I'm just going to answer some people. Susan Iannucci, I'm hoping
Yeah.
that's how you say it, says, what was the degree of what to the what? And it was the degree of wanting is proportional. I've actually got it written down somewhere. Bear with me a second.
Lori just wants to give you a hug.
Thank you. The degree of wanting is in direct proportion to the degree of emptiness. The degree of wanting is in direct proportion to the degree of emptiness. The talk he gives is about the addictive brain and the idea of, because we're not being our authentic selves, there's lack inside us. And so we have to fill that space. And the degree of wanting is in direct proportion to the degree of emptiness, which really struck me.
And we could even do like, you could even do like a little, what is it that businesses do? The word's not going to me. You know, when the tax guy comes in and does to check, not an inventory, he does looks at your books and sees it's
An
an
assessment.
audit.
Audit?
Oh,
An audit, thank you. we could do an audit. You know, what part of my life have I maybe grown out of that I'm
Yeah.
not, that I could stretch a little, because they're
And again,
probably,
it's that habit energy, isn't it? We all get into these routines, and routines will set you free, as they say. You know, it's really important to put things regularly into your life that are going to enhance it. But actually,
yeah.
there are some things in our lives that we do automatically because we do, and maybe we don't enjoy them, and maybe we should think about that.
And also approaching it as should. Dennis said that in the last call, or one of the last calls. If you spend your life shoulding all over yourself, oh, I should do this, I should do that. Like, really? Are you enjoying? Now, Sarah Nessel says,
Sorry, I must just laugh. Laurie Kane says, some days my cats eat really well. I think it's just so funny. And so true.
Sarah, do you want to talk, or do you want me to read it out? Fine, Sarah.
Oh, I can read it. That's
Hi,
fine.
Sarah.
On camera because I look awful. This has been one of those days. So yeah, I'm leaving a $50 hour a week corporate job that I've been in for decades. At the end of this year, to take a year out of the workforce to deal with some family issues. The family issues are not going to take up the full 50 hours that the corporate job has been taking up. So one of the things I would like to do is explore narration and kind of try to boot up my narration, just because it's one of my passions, not because I necessarily think I'll ever be able to make a living at it, but I want to get better at it. So, Anna, what would you recommend that I
Sarah,
do?
I have to admit to having heard you narrate, and only a sample, and I'm not sure why you think you wouldn't be able to make a living at it. As I mentioned, abundance, the thought of abundance is key. There are so many books out there that need narrating. There are so many different ways of approaching it. Cup of Joe is a great place to come on a Thursday call, or there's going to be lots more Tuesday calls with lots more information. There is so much free information out there. You know, so much of this is about just listening to stuff, podcasts, listen to Sean Pratt, Johnny Heller. They're always being interviewed on stuff. Is it Rich Miller does that lovely podcast where they all get
Oh,
a
yeah,
drink and then they chat
speakeasy.
about
Yeah.
life. And they're always giving away some nugget of gold. Karen Commons has written that fantastic narrator's roadmap that has all that information in. There is so much stuff out there available
Yeah.
to you before we even talk about coaching and training. That, but I just feel like that sense of kindness to self, that sense of self-belief, carries you so much further than you would imagine. There's a lovely quote. Is it Tim Ferriss that does that podcast? He interviews famous people. There was somebody interviewed him, and he talks about uh, oh, it wasn't him, it was Tom Bilyeu or somebody, again, does a podcast where he interviews people. And he talks about being a total nerd in high school and being really bad with girls. And so he finally gets up the courage one day, and he goes to one of the guys in the school and he says, how are you so good with girls? What can I do? And the guy laughed at him and walked away. And I'm thinking, well, that's a really bad story. And he said, on that day, I decided that I was giving up. There was just no point. I was going to stop trying to be the jock. I was going to stop trying to be the funny guy. I was going to stop trying to be, and I was just going to be me. And on the days that I felt like telling a joke, I'd tell a joke. And on the days I was nerdy, I was going to be nerdy. And suddenly, everybody loved him. And that comes back to authenticity. It comes back to, ultimately, we can only offer what we have. And in underappreciating what we have, we're left with very little. But actually, we're already full up. You know, the fact that you are Sarah Nessel is fantastic. There is no other Sarah. You know, there is nobody like you. There's nobody with your life experiences. There's nobody who would be able to fulfill the role of you as narrator. It's one of the things I love about voice work. You know, there's that sense that even if I'm competing with other people for books and I don't get them, and my friend Lorraine gets one, I go, oh, I love Lorraine, and her voice and mine, they're not similar in any way. So if that's what they were looking for, she's the girl for the job. I'm really good with that. There are lots of other books out there. There's lots of other work,
There's
but
enough
we have to go
gorgeous for
find it.
everyone. But you know what struck me, Sarah, when you notice new people, I notice new people, probably not just narrators and everywhere in the world. It's a way to be part of the herd they're you signaling by saying, oh, I'm not going to take it seriously. You're signaling that you're not a threat. You know what I mean? It's what
Yeah.
Anna was saying. We all want to like kind of fit in and belong, but be a threat.
Yeah, part of it is, I mean, I love doing it. And I'm a little bit put off when people say, oh, you'll never take this seriously if you look at it as a hobby. Well, girl, I once quit a job and moved hundreds of miles away to pursue a hobby. And so don't tell me I don't take hobbies seriously.
Yeah.
But no,
I think
I
that's
do want it to be more than that.
But to be honest, I think that's really unfair because it's a bit like talking about amateurs, you know, amateurs in the theatre. The reason people are amateurs in the theatre is because their love of the theatre is so great that
Right.
on their spare time, the only place they want to be is treading the boards. So having
Exactly.
an audiobook narration as a hobby means that the thing you do when you can is that. How much more love is there than that? I think if you can then make your hobby into a living, like you're just living the dream, aren't you? You know, and ultimately, I just didn't believe that anybody would pay me to talk. I mean, it's just bizarre, isn't it? You know, it didn't occur to me that I read well aloud, that my cold reading happened to be good because I went to a convent school and they beat me if I didn't read well. You know, thank you very much, ultimately. You know, it's a bit bizarre, isn't it? And again, everything we bring to the table makes us that one person. And that's what we're selling when we do the speed dating. I'm reading Todd's thing going up with having done the speed dating. Congratulations. Despite feeling like an imposter. I mean, imposter syndrome is a whole nother story and a whole nother talk. But we all struggle with it. And again, it's an ebb and flow. There are days when I can conquer the world. I could get books out. I could, you know, schmooze with Michelle Cobb and name drop left, right, and center. And days where I sit in my house going, I hope nobody notices me because really today's not a good day. So, you know, it happens to us all. And I think ultimately investigating why you feel like an imposter, and usually it's because you want it so badly. I was hysterically nervous about doing this call today. And I suddenly realized that it's because it was really important to me. This stuff I'm talking about, I've been thinking about for 10 years. And suddenly I'm sharing it with people and I'm going, are they just going to switch off their screens? Are they all just going to leave? Is this going to go really badly? And it's because it's important to me. And so Sarah, you know, and Todd and everyone, you know, if we're all here because we love this, so let's enjoy it. You know, there is fun to be had. Some of it's hard and some of it's tricky, but it's a bit like when don't you hate computers? You know, every so often something happens and you go, I didn't press any buttons and now it's different. That freaks me out. It drives me insane. And it's taken me 5 years to realize that I can pick up the phone and call Joe Brooks and go, I'm really happy to pay you $50 right now to tell me what key to press, or I could spend 2 days sitting here crying. And I might work it out eventually, but actually other people do things well and I do things well. And I don't have to be everything to everyone. So finding those key things that you're good at and being able to do them. And Sarah, I wish you well with your family issues. And I love that you have spare time to narrate. And I hope that you get to see that actually you get to run with it. And as the months and the weeks progress, you get yourself a timetable and you routinely block out time because it's important and it's important to you. And people will take you seriously if you take yourself seriously.
Well, thank you. Thank you for doing this call. This is great. This is what I needed.
Good.
Okay, we've got another. Todd, do you want to say your question? It sounds like Todd's in the same place that I was in, whereas you know you're ready to take the leap and you're still too scared. Todd, do you want to say it or do you want me to read the question to Anna? Where is Todd?
Right here.
Hi, Todd.
How's it going? I finally made one. Hey.
Welcome.
Yeah, I'm kind of dealing with the imposter syndrome thing as well, as it says. I did the APA speed dating. I got 2 books out of it from HarperCollins and Simon Schuster. Got on their roster, so those are coming out soon. And Deanna Audio has been contacting me. So
Congratulations.
but I still don't feel like
Todd, we're all there. I really appreciate what you're saying. I find that, sorry, this kind of connects with what Terry was saying about it's really important to find yourself a cheerleader. I really struggled to find myself a cheerleader. I've struggled to I tend to look for the negative. So I look for people to criticize me. I look for them to tell me why I shouldn't be doing things. And I find them. There are
Yeah.
plenty of people telling me why I shouldn't, which is why I have to shout so loud about the importance of telling yourself. And Todd, that's what it boils down to. I used to have people go, oh my God, I really love that book. And I'd look at them and go, oh, you must not have listened to very many then. Or
Oh,
maybe you don't know about audiobooks, you know. Obviously, I now can't trust your opinion because, you know, you're obviously wrong. So, and
you
it's
did
taken
that
me a
to
really
me with
long.
that book you did that was amazing.
I usually say when someone says that, I say, I'm sorry you had to listen to that. So,
Yeah,
Oh
and
but
no.
again, because you are underwhelmed by your own abilities, Todd, HarperCollins are not in the business of employing people who don't do things well. You know, the fact that you got books out that are speed dating, you need to take a moment and acknowledge that that means something. Don't dismiss it. Don't discard it. Don't think it was beginner's luck. If any of us here at all have a job, any job, it's a sign that we're in the right place. No, people don't connect with you because they think you're the wrong person. They don't connect with you because they don't want a good job done, so they thought they'd come to you. You know, when you say stuff out loud as well, if you start talking it through, that's why the journaling really worked for me, because I started writing down the stuff I was believing. And when I read it back, I was like, seriously? I didn't even know I thought that, you know. It's a little bizarre sometimes, but finding a cheerleader can be hard work. So we have to be our own cheerleader too. I mean, it's great to have a mentor or a coach who will, again, that's why I was so desperate for qualifications and some kind of backing that said, I'm allowed to be here because I have this piece of paper. It doesn't actually mean anything. I'm allowed to be here because I belong. I'm allowed to be here because I love this and I want to be. And that's good enough.
thank you. That helps
Good.
because I've done the coaching and I've got someone who's mentoring and all that stuff. And even when they tell me, dude, they Simon and Schuster took your stuff. They like your stuff. It's hard to get with them or this one and that one. And I'm still like, they must have made a mistake. It was,
But
there
the
was no
thing
one else
is,
to do the book, you know, or something like that. So,
do you know what, Todd, though? I actually hired a coach to tell me that I was crap because I wasn't obviously succeeding and everyone else was. And she said, but look at what you have. You've done books for so and so and so and so. I was like, oh, but those don't count because I got them from a different, it's like, honestly, you expect them to give you a badge that you're now one of the cool in crowd and you're waiting for the badge. You've got the badge. You're a publisher's narrator. You've got 3 years under your belt. Your name is known. I knew you before you even joined the group. You've got the badge, but you got to give yourself. You got to listen to Anna.
I'm listening to her. I'd
Um,
rather listen to her than Sean. Sean doesn't like me. No, I'm just kidding. So,
we've
Sean's a
got
great guy.
okay, so I walk away from okay, not an imposter. I'm worthy to keep moving. P.S. Anna, I'm a huge Mel and Brene groupie. Laura English said that. Oh, you said that. Thank you. HarperCollins and Simon Schuster, Todd. Sarah Nessel says, take the leap. Todd, life is short.
The whole moving from your job to narration, I appreciate, is a big deal, but it really is about mindset, because being an audiobook narrator is a job. And I think that's the issue, isn't it? I was so desperate to do this for a living that I was like, but it's in the arts. And my family doesn't do that. My parents don't acknowledge the arts. I'm like, I don't know anybody that happened to. I don't know anybody who got into a life of creative art relatively easily. Mostly it's a hard slog. And if you come from a family where the arts aren't a thing, and that's not really a way to make a living, it's harder, because your belief is that you will fail and you will struggle and you will, and actually overcoming all of those thoughts and acknowledging that there is a living to be made, and it's mathematics. It's ultimately about making enough money to make it worth your while. And if you're doing that switch and you're making enough money, then you're ready. It is about self-belief.
And you're such a happier person. When you wake up and you're like doing a job that like you're kind of, I can't imagine having a boss. I mean, obviously you have clients. I can't imagine. I don't think I'm unemployable at this point. I don't think I could have someone telling me what to do. Could you?
Could you before?
Huh? Oh yeah, I wasn't too
Sorry.
good at it, was I? Now that you mention, we do have a comment. The tough thing in the US regarding leaving a full-time job is the health insurance angle. It's really scary, especially now.
I do appreciate that, and particularly with the recent news from SAG-AFTRA that, you know, they've messed with people, haven't they? And it's hard work. I really do appreciate that. It's a tough time, and it's, you know, I think the other important thing is if you are working a full-time job and narrating part-time or as a hobby or however you want to describe it, you're still an audiobook narrator. The fact that you don't get to do the thing you love all the time is unfortunate, and there are practicalities behind it. But there's a feeling that unless you're doing it full time, you're not the real thing. And that's the mindset that needs switching. Even if you're doing it 2 hours every evening or, you know, on a Saturday morning because the rest of your time is taken up, you are still an audiobook narrator. And I think the message I really want to pass across is about self-empowerment. You know, stop being underwhelmed by your own abilities. Write down the stuff you could do when you were 12, when you thought you didn't know that life was going to knock you about. You know, some
I
of
love
us could,
that.
you know, hit a ball really well with a baseball bat. We don't do that anymore. It doesn't mean we weren't good at it. And just because people don't acknowledge us, just because we aren't being cheer-led, if that's a word, cheerleaded,
Cheers.
cheered, thank you. It doesn't mean that we're not fabulous. There are other reasons why people don't cheer for us. And usually it's to do with their stuff. It's to do with their own worries, their upset, their concerns for us, their feelings of failure, or their inability to see that unless you take the leap, you'll never find out. I've been moving house for 3 years, and I haven't moved house because I've been worried that if I move and I don't like it, what happens? And only just recently, I've realized that I won't know until I move house.
And it's tall poppy syndrome, right? You know, tall pop. Well, you were the one that told me about that, Anna.
I didn't think so.
A tall poppy syndrome. I don't know if it's even poppies, but if one gets too big, the other ones will pull it down.
That's very
Or is that like rats or monkeys? Something. If something goes too big,
you're going to work on that story for next time.
other ones will pull it down for its own safety, supposedly. But
again, that's the whole attachment thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it stops you being your authentic self. And authenticity is what, if you look at the likes of Hilary Huber and Scott Brick, I'm sorry, I mentioned them for no reason other than they are known names. They are just busy being themselves. And if you ever manage to get them at a bar and buy them a drink, they're real people with real issues in their love lives and paying their bills and doing, having to fix their cars. They're just people, and we're just people.
and there's so much themselves. Hilary Huber, I think that's probably why I had one coaching session with her. And I think she's the coolest human being. I'm like such a fangirl. But I think it's because that's maybe why she's so popular, because she's herself. If you want to see a podcast, there's an American podcast called The Accidental Creative. Sorry to interrupt you, Anna, but it's just the people that are afraid to leave part-time jobs in America. I know his old ones were really focused on that, how to like fit in a creative life around when you still have to work and everything. I don't know if his new stuff is still that good because he's written a few books, but he might have something about the health issue. But he was used to be really good about how to work a part-time job in around full-time, and he's in America, so it's all to do with the American stuff.
Yeah, I'm not purporting anybody take any risks with their families or their health. I just feel like if there's something you love that you can do and you can believe in yourself with it, you should. And I'm all for us all promoting ourselves to each other. There was my daughter phoned me the other day and she said, is it showing off if I write on LinkedIn that I got this certificate and this thing? And I'm like, we had to have a whole conversation about the difference between self-aggrandizement and self-promotion.
Right.
Nobody likes a show off, but everybody wants you to do well.
Yeah.
And it is a fine line to tread. But if you're not saying it inside your own head, feel free not to write it all over social media, but you need to talk to yourself nicely, and you need to promote the things you love and enjoy the stuff you do.
Yeah. And because when one of us does well, the rest of us do well. You get a tiny sting when somebody wins speed dating or gets this or gets that. You get a tiny sting for like 2 seconds. And then it brings the best out in us. And we go, wow, I'm really happy for that person. And doing the speed dating practice for the people that made it in made me feel so much better about not having made it in that time, because I was so excited for them. And they came back on, remember, afterwards, and they were like, you know, I did well, I did well. It was like, I wanted to hug them and send them food.
I have to, I'm gonna have to quote Garth Brooks, or maybe we should close on this quote. There's Garth Brooks song that says, some of God's greatest gifts are unanswered prayers. And I think it's really important to remember sometimes when you don't get something, there's usually another reason, and it isn't because you're not good enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Different path. Thank you so much, Anna. You guys, if we missed your question or if you have any more questions for Anna, I'm going to post, of course, after this call on the group, and feel free to put in the comment section any questions, and Anna will check it afterwards. Thank you so much. I feel like all is right with the world after this call. I knew I would. You're a mensch. You're fabulous. Thank you all for joining, you guys. It was fabulous.
Thank you very much.
What a positive. We should go forth and conquer now.
Absolutely.
Okay, take care, guys. Bye, everyone. Bye. Thanks for joining. Bye, Anna. Bye.